roll-up of marketing attribution firms in the auto retail space has begun. This is Automobuzz. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to this edition of the Automobuzz. Today is Tuesday, September 19th. I'm Ryan Girardi. According to eMarketer, the U.S. automotive industry is projected to spend nearly $10 billion on digital ads in 2017, and digital ad spend will reach over $14 billion in spending by 2020. With this kind of money being spent, how do auto dealers and their advertising partners know what's influencing what, and how can they prove it? Just last month, Semcasting, a tech firm in North Andover, Massachusetts, and creators of the patented IP targeting technology, Semcasting Smart Zones, announced the acquisition of Orlando-based TransparencyAI, an automotive marketing attribution company. Since September 2015, Semcasting and TAI have worked successfully together to bring attribution and media solutions to auto dealer groups and the top online auto listing publishers. TAI uses Semcasting's IP matching and universal data exchange, UDX, to connect online and offline customers' activity on online publisher sites that host individual and dealer group inventory for sale. Auto dealers can measure the impact of their promotional marketing spend against the traffic on publisher platforms and then track it directly to the purchase of a car. With Semcasting technology, clients can deterministically identify an auto buyer across the entire customer journey. And it links customer ID across multiple online platforms and then matches consumers to dealer repair, test drives, and website visits, and matches audiences served on behalf of the dealer and to select pages on online listing sites. How's that for a mouthful? Semcasting acquired TransparencyAI, a data analytics firm, which has come on strong in the last year, helping publishers measure the effectiveness of their digital advertising platforms. Semcasting and TAI together offer a deterministic attribution solution for publishers and dealers' ad spend. TransparencyAI was formerly known as Visible Customer, a Minneapolis-based company once owned by the Minnesota Automobile Dealers Association. John Lamb invested in the company a couple of years ago, and then last year changed its name and focus while bringing on Darren Haygood, a former Dealer.com executive, to be president. Lamb, as will the partnerships that TAI has with third-party publishers, along with all the services they provide, will continue on with Semcasting. The company, founded by Ray Kingman, focuses on IP targeting, which is identifying customers based on internet protocol addresses instead of using cookies and pixels, and matching their online behavior with offline transactional behavior. So this acquisition makes sense for Semcasting, which really didn't have a direct play in automotive, but now will have a strong presence with several of the online publishers such as Car Gurus, AutoTrader, Cars.com, and the likes. Last week, I had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Kingman about this acquisition and the role that Semcasting will now have in the auto retail space. Have a listen. I think you're either brand new or relatively new in the automotive space. You've been working with TransparencyAI for a couple of years, from what I understand, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, we are not, we do some online marketing for some dealer groups outside of Transparency, but we didn't really have the domain expertise. So that was a key part of the reason and the motivation to do the acquisition. And auto was a logical next step in terms of our growth.
Sure.
And we have been working with Transparency, from their beginning, doing a lot of the back end data work that they needed to have done to build their attribution solution. So we were very familiar with them, and it was a pretty easy match.
The topic of third-party attribution, which is something we cover on a regular basis. Transparency came into that conversation. Suddenly they're acquired by this company called Semcasting that nobody's heard of. And so naturally that prompted me to say, hey, who is Semcasting? One of my questions was, why TransparencyAI? You are obviously the data behind that. Transparency is that arm in automotive, to take the data and the model and to, I guess you could say, determine the attribution. That's what they're after. I mean, that's their role, correct?
That is it. I mean, basically what we have is we have all the offline data to associate with the actual auto buyer. What we're doing is saying, okay, here's this person. We can map it to their online traffic, in a fairly straightforward way, and turn around and go to cars.com and say, hey, this particular person was on your site 32 times in the last 3 months.
Over the past few years, there's been a ton of controversy around dealerships' DMS data. The main systems out there are Reynolds and ADP. And about 80%
Correct.
of dealerships use one of those two systems. And
yep.
And over the years, Reynolds, particularly with CDK, has buckled down or tightened up who has access to that data and how they get it,
right.
and how much it's going to cost to access that data. And that has caused a ton of controversy and also created a lot of, it's jacked up costs, right? And it's just created a lot of bottlenecks in the industry. So when you get into a company like TransparencyAI, who now needs that data,
or a form of that data,
right? They need some of that. They need some of that data from there. That leads to, how are they going to get it? Is the dealer going to provide it, and or are they going to go through another party to get it?
I am aware of and have heard about the tensions in the DMS world about who owns the data. And, I think that it's probably incumbent on everybody to maintain a certain degree of propriety and make sure that nobody's doing silly things with data beyond its designated or designed use.
Now, you guys have a ton of data coming through your systems, including IP data. Are you buying that IP data from multiple sources? Are you harvesting on your own? Can you speak to that?
We get it from all kinds of sources. We get it from, there are IP geo directories out there that get published and updated every day. There are, those are third-party type data providers, but that's just raw information with no association to it other than like maybe a zip+4 or something like that. So yes, I mean, the short answer to it is yes, we compile, and yes, we do licensed data feeds, but they're raw data feeds, and then that process, those feeds go through our systems to get assigned or linked to a designated delivery point. Those delivery points tend to be homes or businesses.
Okay, so you license the data out, because that was what I was going to ask you is, do you guys sell your anonymized data out to other parties?
No, not as a feed, quote unquote. No, absolutely not. No, we quite honestly, it changes so fast that it's a diminishing asset. All right, so you collect it, you process it, and you use it to drive campaign bidding, programmatic bidding on advertising, or making a match to a particular date and time within an impression on a cars.com, for example. But 48 hours later, it's a useless piece of.
I got you. So if I'm hearing you correctly, the data itself is only valuable or useful for a brief period of time. It's the modeling, it's the semantics, it's your taxonomies. That's your intellectual property. That's what's of value to interpret the information that's flowing through. TransparencyAI is obviously contracted by third-party companies that are hiring them to do their attribution studies. So I imagine that's their primary revenue model. How does Semcasting make its money?
We are a data, what they call a data as a service provider. So what that means outside of ad tech is essentially folks like a Pfizer comes to us and the pharmaceutical company and says, hey, we have a new treatment form for high blood pressure or hypertension or diabetes. And we're like the data provider that they come to, and they say, all right, give me all the people who live near doctors who are specialized in hypertension. So they'll build out trade areas. So we'll identify the people and their IP delivery points anonymously and provide them as targets for programmatic bidding on advertising, online advertising. So, that those audiences live in a closed loop between us and the advertising servers, platforms. Those audiences don't get shared. They're also not identifiable in any kind of person on a person basis.
Well, Ray, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. It was great talking with you.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.